Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 6. This is a recording, quite obviously, because you are watching it on YouTube. But I'm so happy that you are here. And this is going to be a very brief lecture where I'm just going to tie some things together that we've talked about during this summer and hopefully help you wrap your head around everything. It's been a very quick summer. All summer classes are like that. We cover a heck of a lot of ground in just 6 weeks. And so I appreciate your hard work in making that happen. I appreciate your patience and I appreciate your attention because those are can be challenging things, especially with all the things that are happening in your own lives. And it takes an extra level of focus during the summer. So what I want to talk a little bit about today, I'm in the way of that graphic, uh, is the future of mass communications and how it relates to some of the many things that we've talked about. One of the overriding themes this semester, or this summer, I should say, in our class was this idea of convergence. What is convergence, right? And the idea of convergence is that it is to put it the simplest way, and this isn't simple, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Convergence is the coming together of multiple technologies, multiple business practices, and business um, objectives to create a single product. All right. So, what are some examples of this, or what are some ways that this sort of manifests in real life? Well, the fact that you can watch a television show on your phone is an example of convergence. The fact that you can listen to radio on your phone is an example of convergence. The fact that you're watching this, all right, that you're watching a class on YouTube and maybe you're watching it on a tablet, maybe you're watching it on your television, maybe you're watching it on your phone. That's an example of convergence. Technologies had to talk to one another and come together in order for this to happen. And so when you had internet technology companies and multimedia companies, and then sort of your traditional legacy media companies starting to work together, or at least create things that work together, that's when convergence was possible. And it's changed the way that we consume media. All right. So that's really important to know because everything that you're doing today in your media landscape is probably been influenced by convergence. And not only is it just a different way to consume media, it's also a different way for media business to be done. So when we talked about, for example, second, third, and fourth screening, media, for instance, a television show is being created differently because they know that you're going to be following along on something related to that show on your phone. So they might have you do a survey, they might have you use a hashtag on social media, those sort of ideas. So convergence is bringing those all together. One of the major takeaways that I hope you grab from this class over the last 6 weeks is just how fast things are moving. And I can't understate this. People ask me a lot, like, what's so different about this era? And I always say it's the speed, right? We've seen new technologies come in the last 200 years. We've seen technologies come in that have scared us, that have made us believe that they were going to take over our lives, that sort of thing. That's not really new. What is new is the speed at which these technologies are coming at us, right? We talked about being on information overload the entire semester and just how quickly things are moving, and our brain is not really wired to handle that really well. I read something interesting the other day. Uh, it took Facebook about I think it was like 10 weeks or something like that. I might be misquoting it, but 10 weeks or 10 months or something, almost a year to get to 1 million users. When ChatGPT launched, it took them 5 days to get to 1 million users. All right. And then you can go back further and talk about how long it took for television to get to 1 million users, or even the internet to get to 1 million users. We're moving much faster. So the reason that's happening is that we're getting really good at tech across the board, right? That's one thing. We're a more educated society. We're a more tech-focused society, STEM, all those things. Our processors are moving faster than ever before. But the biggest thing is that these are more accessible because they're being made cheaper, and that allows more people to have them in their hands. There was a time when having a phone, a cell phone or a smartphone, wasn't possible for most folks. Now it is because of prices and whatnot. So there was a real socioeconomic line painted in the sand there. So that idea of getting the technology in more people's hands speaks really well to what we've talked about in mass communication the entire time, right? And how, now we have as many senders as we do receivers, and that's changed mass communication dramatically. So that's something really important to think about as well. And that will continue. Things are just going to keep getting faster. So hang on. All right. That's going to happen. The other thing that has happened that has changed our world is globalization. And I think sometimes people think about like the pandemic and assume that, oh, we just kind of we're more insulary than ever before, but that's actually not true because of the technology we have. I can do business with someone in Africa very easily now, whereas 30, 40 years ago, that was almost impossible, right? I can do a credit card transaction with someone across the world very easily using apps. I can communicate with someone across the world using apps. Global business is more possible right now than ever before. So those changes are driving the way that we communicate. They're driving our media landscapes and they're forcing them to expand because now business is conducted globally all over the world. And we need to go out and be part of that global conversation and that global economy, quite frankly. What are the challenges for mass communication? There's a lot of them, and we've discussed these from time to time throughout the semester. I think the biggest one that is going on right now as you're here, the biggest one is combating misinformation, disinformation. Don't forget, misinformation is mistaken information, information in error. Maybe it wasn't done um, with negligence or ill intention, but there's a lot of erroneous reports out there about any topic you can think of. But then the worst kind is the disinformation, because that not only is incorrect information, it is purposefully incorrect, designed to sow discord or divide people or confuse people or send people into a panic. And that's really the worst kind because of its intention, right? And so, how do we combat that? Well, we've discussed this too. Get better at media literacy. Think about the motivations of our sources. Think about, leaning on some of those more reliable sources who have been time tested again and again and proven to be reliable. And it forces you to be a more active information consumer, and that's just more work, quite honestly. But that's the world that we're living in right now. And you have to be aware of how things are operating in order to be, uh, you know, I would say strong global citizen. All right. Because there's so much bad information out there. There is an ongoing digital divide. In a traditional sense, the digital divide was typically meant to describe a socioeconomic difference between those who had access to technology and those who did not. The pandemic exposed this digital divide. People who weren't internet capable had a hard time functioning in society, going to school, going to work, so on and so forth. We made some inroads in sort of shrinking that divide a little bit, but it's still out there. And now we see divides in other access, such as AI, for example. We're finding that AI isn't necessarily accessible for the masses like we would hope it would be, in order for people to learn it and understand it and keep up with it. So we still have to conquer that divide. And what does that take? It takes investment. It takes time. It takes an understanding of what divides still exist out there with digital technology, but that's out there. And then the other thing that's happened, and again, we discussed this here and there throughout this semester, is just the changes that are occurring in these long-standing traditional mass communication industries. We talked about the upheaval in Hollywood with movies and television. We talked about the major changes in the newspaper industry, in radio. Those will continue. And as I told you honestly along the way, and I'll tell you honestly again, I don't know where a lot of those are headed. And a lot of other people don't either. We can make our predictions, but right now, mass communication is in a very fluid state and things are changing daily. So stay on your toes, keep up with the news, so on and so forth. Having said that, and what I kind of want to say in closing before we take a look ahead is I do think, even though there's a lot of, um, you know, it's a tumultuous moment for mass comm. There's a lot of opportunities here too. If you're interested in a communications or journalism or mass communications related career of any kind, don't shy away from it just because of some of the uncertainties that we've discussed. I don't know a lot of industries that are super certain right now, right? Our world, there's a bit of an upheaval here, but it doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities and it doesn't mean there's not a future for you. So I am always here to help you with that. I am always here to guide you on your journey, and it's a true honor to be a part of your journey. I thank you so much for taking this class. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, just a couple things. As we head into week 6, your only task during week 6 here is to finish the final exam. All right. The final exam is now open. It opened at midnight on Monday. It closes at 11:59 on Friday. In fact, the entire class closes down on Friday. So that is the absolute latest you can take it. Don't start it at 11:55. It will turn in at 11:59 no matter how much you've done. So give yourself time. You have the entire block of time that we normally have class on Wednesday because we're not having a live lecture. I'm giving you that as some time to work on what's left for the class. Also, don't forget, there's still week 5 homework. That week 5 homework is due by the end of the day, Wednesday. So make sure you're finishing that as well. Week 5 is still open through Wednesday. One thing I'm going to ask, I would love for you to do, this is not a requirement, it's not an assignment, and you can leave whatever feedback you want. It doesn't have to be nice. Um, I would really encourage you, if you can, to leave feedback at ratemyprofessor.com about this class. This is my first year at Cuesta. I'm new here. I know how much students rely on a website like Rate My Professor to kind of learn about their instructors and learn about classes. And I'm trying to build up my presence there, quite honestly. It's a little bit of a weird thing to ask, I realize, but leave honest feedback, and I would really appreciate it. If you have any questions, if you're interested in other journalism classes, my email is there. You can always reach me via Canvas, but please don't hesitate to reach out at any time. I'm always happy to talk to students. And if you ever want to stop by my office, I'm in 6214 and I always have candy. All right. So even if you come in, look at me awkwardly, take a piece of candy and leave, it'll be awkward and I won't like it, but it's okay to do that. I'll forgive you. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking Journalism 200 over the summer. Have a wonderful rest of your summer. Be safe, be well. And once again, thank you for your time and taking this class. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.